You can do a deferred payment and liquidate. So if you're just going to sell all the assets off, which is fun to do also sometimes, just get a deferred payment and then go liquidate the assets and pay them from the liquidation. And you'd laugh at those things. Why would people do that? But in the 80s, it was done so many times by all the corporate raiders, right? They were like, the company's worth more broken up than it is together. You could do a debt subject to, so you can say, hey, what are you going to do with that money? You know you have to pay off the $1 million line that you've got. So instead of doing that, Brian, how about if I just assume that? How about if I take that over? Now, I wouldn't offer to assume it first. I would say, would you take that subject to? I can take it subject to. I'm not going to assume it, but I will pay it for you. Right? And I'll have a contract that says I'll do that, because then it doesn't affect my credit. And if he says, screw you, I want you to assume it, then I'll be like, okay, gosh, you're a hard negotiator. Right? And then I will assume the debt. Okay? So wrap and assume are similar. Wrap is, so you can take it subject to, meaning the debt's going to continue to exist and I'm going to say that I'm going to take care of it. I could wrap it, meaning I could give the seller a note saying that I will pay, I will take over that debt and pay it, but it doesn't get assumed by me from the primary lender. Or I can assume it, which is I go to the lender and say, hey, how about if Brian doesn't have to pay that back? How about if I do that and I'm going to take over it and now Brian's off the hook? Okay?
Do you want sale clauses on those kinds of notes, like in real estate, or?
Well, sometimes and sometimes not. It just depends on where the financing is. But there's all kinds of creative financing in business, right? And due on sale clauses can be waived in real estate and in life, right?
Yeah, you can get around it with just a trust.
Debt restructure is another way. You're just going in and saying, hey, how about if we want to pay you, but we are having hard times right now and I'm in the middle of this acquisition. I'd like to have 90 days or I'd like to pay you over 17 months instead of 5 or whatever, right? Debt reduction is, hey, I'm going to bankrupt this thing and you're not going to get anything, or I'll give you 40 cents on the dollar for your debt. You say it nicer than that. That's not the best way to negotiate. You can liquidate the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or you can sell it and then do a lease back, or you can sell it and then go out and lease new equipment. But either way, you're putting cash in your pocket. You can finance the furniture and fixtures and equipment. There's lots of equipment financing companies if you've got machinery. You can go out and get raw materials financing as well, also called supplier loans. You can get inventory financing. If you have too much inventory that you've taken from somebody else, you can go back to the person that you bought it from and say, I'd like to return this amount for now, even if they say there's a restocking fee, or maybe they say, well, we don't want to take it back. And you say, I'll tell you what, if you'll take it back and give me a credit for it for 90 days, I will buy it back in 90 days. How about that? And then I'll continue to do business with you. But if you don't, I'm going to find somebody else. A seller could consign inventory to you. So basically, you're not going to pay the seller for the inventory up front. There's $300,000 in inventory. You tell the seller, I will pay you as it sells. I'm going to let you continue to own it. I'm going to buy the rest of the assets of the business. I'll hold the inventory for you, and then as it sells, I'll pay you. Right? Yes, sir.
Do you have AR financing on your list?
I do. Supplier invests. The supplier basically is, you go to your supplier and say, hey, how'd you like to own part of the business? Or you get a loan from the supplier, or you get the supplier to give you different terms or to consign the stuff to you. If you've got lease or other deposits, then see if you can get a release. If you can't get a release of the deposits, then see if you can get a reduction in them, right? Surprisingly, a lot of times you can. One of the biggest things that I got out of the deal with Digital Marketer was there was about $2.3 million in credit card reserves when I came into the company that they hadn't even really thought about because it was all tied up. 100% of that has been released. So we just got an extra 2-3 for grins and giggles. So if that's built up in the company, that's a great place to go and get additional money. You can close and delay accounts payable, or you can close and defer accounts payable. What do you think the difference is?
Delay, you actually end up paying.
Well, one way is consensual and one way is not. So I go to the AP people and I go, would you guys mind if we paid you back over 90 days? And they're like, sure. I'm like, thank you, that's a deferment. Or they'll say, no way. And I'll be like, okay, I'm not going to pay you for 90 days. You could do, if there's real estate, you sell it and lease it back. You can do an SBA 504 or 7A or 7A Express. 504 is for acquiring things, not the business itself, but like real estate or equipment. 7A you might use to finance 75% of the business. 7A Express happens much faster because the SBA typically moves slow, and that's up to $350,000. You can barter. So let's say that you want that Vacheron Constantin watch, and I've got something that I can give you instead. Then I might go find somebody else that's got the Vacheron. I actually used to be in the jewelry and watch business, so I know people that have those. So I could go to them and say, look, I've got this thing that you want. I've got a Bosendorfer grand piano, and you've said you've always wanted one. I'll trade you that for the Vacheron, and then go to you and give you the Vacheron, right? Or maybe I could just say, hey, instead of cash, how would you like a Vacheron Constantin watch, right? Holdback. So when you do deals, typically there's a holdback amount in case the seller has failed to disclose things, or things come up that nobody expected. Even if it's not intentional, there can be things that come up. So you'll typically hold back about 10% of the purchase price. So $3 million deal, that's 300 grand that's going to be held back. $30 million deal, it's $3 million, and it's held back typically for a pretty long period of time. They'll ask for 5 years. You might say, I want it to be 3, and then they've got your money for 3 years. I usually say, well, I want it released 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 over that period of time, try to get it back as soon as I can. But there is a holdback. So you can tell the seller there's the holdback. The seller's attorney won't object to that because it's something that happens. And you just say, let me hold the holdback for you, and I'll give you a note for the holdback amount, and I'll release it during that period of time. So effectively, you're not going to get that money anyway, seller, so let me use it to help make this deal happen. You can do a note payable. Owner carry note payable, that's just straight seller financing, just like you saw old Hal Jank offering in the broker thing. You can do a balloon, so you can say, I know that you want your money in 3 years, not 7, but give me a straight amortization payment schedule on the note as if it was 7, and then we'll do a 3-year balloon so that I have to pay you everything at that point in time. You can refi any real estate that's in the deal. You can go and get a credit card advance, which we do frequently just so that we can say we didn't come out of pocket for the deal because we like this game. You can play credit card round robin, where you go and get 22 credit cards and have $100,000 in financing, right? And I know, you were saying, lots of people that do that, right? You can also do bank loan round robin. So I know somebody here in town, I use their limo company from time to time, and the lady that owns it is kind of not a great business manager, and so she just recently went out and did, I think she did 12 loan applications at banks all on the same day, and then got the minimum funding. So they didn't, there's an amount they'll generally give you pretty quickly. She got the funding from them all before it reported on her credit so that she could have it, and that's how she funded the next delay in the business's inevitable demise. You can do 100% promos. That's like a pre-sale test, except you tell the seller, look, I'm going to run this offer. I'm going to give you 100% of the proceeds from it. You can give the seller a royalty on intellectual property that they have. If they've got things that they have in the business, you can just say, hey, instead of giving you that in cash, can I pay it to you as a royalty? Or maybe I could license it from you and give you a license fee. You see on Shark Tank, do many of you watch Shark Tank? Okay, so Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary's favorite thing that I see all the time is a seller unit royalty. So he says, I'll give you this money and you pay me back $1 every time you sell a product. You can make the Shark Tank deal with your seller too. Just say, look, on that $100,000, every time that you sell something, I'll give you $10, right? You can split off the real estate from the deal, which I showed you in the analysis we did. I mentioned selling overstock inventory. That was one of the parts of the deal stock and one of the examples I gave. You can have the real estate broker give you a loan for their commission. They'll frequently do that to get the deal done if there's a broker involved. You can split fractional rights. So you can do a fractional rights deal where you say, I'm going to sell you the right to market this to this customer or something like that. You're just basically splitting off the rights so that you are saying, I'm not going to sell that any longer. I'm going to give you for a period of time the ability to have the exclusive right to sell this to this customer. You can post-date the check for closing and have the escrow or their attorney hold it. You can do the debt double tap, which is basically you agree on an amount that's going to be seller financed, but then you go out, and I'll show you a case study too, but then you go out and find the money that you need, or you have it kind of in your back pocket, and you go back to the seller and say, hey, I know that we cut that deal where you're going to get the $100,000 from the first $100,000 that comes in, but I actually was able to put together a deal where I can get you $60,000 right now. Would you take $60,000 right now? And frequently, yes. Very, very frequently, yes. Yeah. You can use a money broker. There are people that do this. I can refer you to somebody if you want. I interviewed one of them on my podcast named Brad Blazer not long ago. My favorite thing in the world was Bill Shatner. William Shatner. We had speak at our 2013 TNC, and I was talking to him in the green room, and he said, what do you guys do? And we were talking about books that we were doing, and he said, maybe I should have you do my next book. And I said, you probably should. And then we left, and I figured I'd never hear from him again. And then I'm driving down the road with my wife, and my phone rings. I didn't recognize the number. For some reason, I answered, and it was Bill. And he said, Roland, Bill, I wanted to talk about that book. And I was like, well, actually, we did want to do a deal with you about that. We have this thing called Hire Yourself for entrepreneurs over 55. We'd like for you to interview them, and then we're going to put it into a book and call it Hire Yourself. And he said, sounds great. He said, my advance is $500,000. And for some reason, out of thin air, I said, that's no problem, Bill. The way we do that is a deferred advance. We give you $500,000 from the first money that comes in from the sale. He said, okay. And I was like, deferred advance. Where the hell did that come from? That's fantastic, right? So I started using the deferred advance in those kinds of deals, and then I started thinking, well, I wonder if I could do that with a company. So I did, and the first time I did it, said exactly the same thing. They were like, we need this much down. And I said, that's no problem. We'll do that as a deferred down payment, and I'll pay it to you in 6 months. And they said, okay. So the DDP, or the deferred down payment, is an amazing tool. And so what it does is it allows you to cut a financing deal and then defer the down payment until the company can generate the cash to pay it.
I registered the domain.
I love it. I have the trademark. I'm suing you. You can do a management buyout. So let the management, the senior management especially of the company, participate in coming up with the money you need for the down payment to have some equity in the company. You could do a partial buy. Just say, I'm not going to buy all of it right now. I'm going to buy 60%, 70%, 80%. You can even do a call option so that you have the ability to buy the rest of it at a later time. You can do a roll-in or a roll-up. This is basically where you've set up an SPV, and you are either going out and buying lots of other companies to roll them up and giving them stock. So they're not getting cash, they're getting stock in the company that's rolling everything up. And they like that deal because you're showing them the multiple is going to be about a 12 when you exit to private equity, and they're only coming in at a 2 or 3 or 4, right? The roll-in is basically the same thing as a roll-up, except you're not consolidating all the assets in ops of the companies. You're keeping the inefficiencies, but each person is trading the value of their company for an equivalent amount of stock in your holding company, and they're continuing to operate their business because all you're trying to do is aggregate the total amount of EBITDA and sales to be a private equity friendly number. Okay? Then you can get a loan against the real estate. You can just do a straight option, say, I'm not going to buy the business right now, but I'd like for you to agree to sell it to me for $6 million for 24 months. You can do a baseline deal where you say, look, we're going to come into the company, but I don't want to take anything away from you that you've done. So you're already doing $2 million in sales and making $1 million in profit. So the first $1 million in profit going forward will continue to be yours. And we'll split 50-50 any profits above that as I do the magic things that I do. And then I like to say also, but when we triple the EBITDA of the company, it goes to 50-50 straight. There's no baseline anymore because you're ahead 50% at that point. Okay? You can do sponsor deals. Sponsors are so overlooked, especially when you're buying assets like podcasts and Facebook accounts and things like that. Anything that you can sell a sponsorship to means you don't have to give away the equity because a sponsor pays every year. An investor pays one time and then gets to stay forever. Get the money from a sponsor for a year instead, or 3 if you need to, instead of having an investor that's in there forever. That's a really fantastic way to generate money for asset purchases. You can do a loan from a bank on your AR, or you can do a sale, which is also called factoring. See, I did it. You can also sublease space. So if you're taking over space that a building that has extra space in it, then sublease it. One of the guys that came to the event like this in Austin last week did just that. He bought he bought a business that was a game store, and it had 2 entire section bays that the guy wasn't using. So he just leased those out to other people to pay for the amount, to pay for the extra payments that needed to be made. You can do an earnout. Earnouts are very, very common. That's when you say, I think the business is going to do this much. The seller says that, and you say, I think it's going to do less than that. And then you say, I'll tell you what, let's agree on a formula to pay you some amount of the excess that you think it's going to do, and if it does that, then we'll pay you that, and if it doesn't, we won't. Okay? And then the last two that we'll talk about today are RBF and MBF. RBF is revenue-based financing, so that's somebody's going to make a loan to you based on the revenue of the company, and they're going to get paid back as revenue comes in. And MBF is merchant-based financing, and merchant-based financing is you go to Amex, and we use this pretty frequently actually. You go to Amex and you say, we have a lot of payments coming in on Amex, will you loan us $2 million? They look at your payment schedule and say, yes, it looks like you have enough to do that, we'll loan that to you, and it's typically like 6% or 5% for 2 years. So those are a few ways, 59 actually, that you can acquire a business with no money out of pocket. Yes, sir, Jason?
Well, on the Amex thing, so when you did $2 million, what is your average recurring with Amex? What are you charging per month that gets you $2 million?
It goes up and down for us, so you'd have to ask the CFO of that company. I can ask him, but it's...
Generally speaking, is it $100,000 a month Amex gets you $2 million?
I truly don't look at that. I have no idea what the Amex...
I'm just curious how their credit box was.
Yeah, I know what the monthly revenue is, but I don't know the portion that's on that, and that's what matters.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
Does that helpful? Does that...
It's a great list.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great list. It's not the one I have in the book. There you go.
Yeah, there's really, you're only limited by your creativity. There's just so many ways to do a deal. Brian?
So, like I have an opportunity that I like, but the seller is very unreasonable about the value of the company. Do you have any kind of strategies to handle
Well, a lot...
realistic valuation?
So number one, if they're not motivated, that's tough, right?
He's motivated.
If he's motivated, then he's going to be flexible on that amount. And I don't really care if I pay even too much if I want it, as long as I don't have to pay here. And we'll talk about something I stole from Dan. I stole it and then I gave him credit for it, so I'm not sure if it's really stealing. Maybe I should just not give him credit. This is something I came up with. It's called the law of price and terms, right? And you say, it's your price, my terms, right? So I might be willing to pay, if you want to sell me that camera, I might be willing to pay $100,000 for it, even though it's only $3,000 if I could pay you $1 a year for $100,000 for 100,000 years, right? And that's the super hyperbolic example. But really, I don't care as long as it works out. Even if I'm effectively renting your business because I don't intend to ever close on it, but I've got control of it, I can do everything I need to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is show them comps. Show them, say, look, dude, I would love to do that, but how, use Chris Voss's thing. That's one of my favorite. If you haven't read Never Split the Difference, read his book. His thing is, how am I supposed to do that? I just, like, here's the numbers and everything. I don't, just, how are you coming up with that? I don't see it. Because a lot of times, just like on Shark Tank, they pulled it out of the air and they have no idea. You're like, okay, well, here's the deal. And the comps for this industry show that the multiple for this industry is typically this. You've got that, and we've got some hickeys around these things, so really we're going to have to take your sales down to here and your profits down to here, and I'll let you keep these assets and use some of these tools, and then say, so, man, it just doesn't make sense. I don't see how, do you really want to sell the business? That's sincerely, like, I'm trying to get you what you want for it. But how am I supposed to do that if what you want is so far out of line of what it's worth?